Thank you very much for being here. We now have a quorum present for the Committee on Academic and Workforce Success. Agenda item 1, please be advised this meeting is being broadcast over the Internet. A few announcements. The Division of P through 16 initiatives will be hosting a series of meetings this summer. You have been provided a list of these meetings with your materials today. On June 6, 2014, the University of North Texas and the Coordinating Board held an academic vertical alignment training and renewal, AVATAR for short, coordinator facilitator meeting in Austin. This annual meeting brought together the regional coordinators and the facilitators conducting the vertical and horizontal curriculum alignment across the state. The purpose of this meeting was to connect AVATAR facilitators and coordinators on the vertical alignment work with HB5, celebrate the share projects, successes, and lessons learned, and to develop 2015 plans for vertical alignment with HB5. A total of 18 participants attended the meeting, which included AVATAR facilitator coordinators from the Education Service Centers, institutions of higher education, nonprofit organizations, and the Coordinating Board and TEA staff. Item 2, consideration of approval of the minutes from the March.
Madam Chair, I have a comment I think would be appropriate now, if it's all right. And I hope this is taken as a constructive suggestion. I'm probably going to sound a little bit like a curmudgeon, but this meeting that we're having was scheduled at 11 o'clock. And so I was here at 11, but the other committee meeting ran over an hour and a half. And I was just going to remark that I think we have to think of people's time and people's schedules, and we've got members of the public here and staff. So I would like to know how we scheduled the meeting for 11, and is there any thought given to the fact that it was going to be a longer meeting, and why not post the meeting as a 1 o'clock meeting rather than 11 o'clock meeting?
Are you?
Well, no, and Mr. Chair, I'm not necessarily directing at you because I think it's probably more of a staff issue.
But in parentheses under that 11, it says, or upon adjournment of the Committee on Affordability, Accounting, and Planning, whichever occurs later. We had a very important, the RAND report, and that ran significantly longer than we anticipated.
Well,
so,
and I think, but I've been involved with chairing things, and really I'm directing it more at the staff because I think they probably did this, but I think there should be an effort to think about what's on the agenda and how long each item is going to take, and then you get an idea of how long the meeting is going to be, and then I think you can schedule it. I just think it would have made, and as I said, there are people sitting out in the audience. It would just, I think, be a better thing if we had scheduled a meeting at 1 o'clock rather than 11. And Doctor, is that something we can do, or somebody can take a close look at those agendas?
We can certainly take a look at the way we allocate time to particular topics and try to do a better job of it.
May I just address this
Yes, Ms.
issue?
Battles, go ahead.
We used to start at noon or upon adjournment of the CAP meeting, and there were, I think, 2 instances where we completed sooner than noon, and board members sat around for an hour and a half before they could commence the next committee meeting. So we started to post at 11 in anticipation of that occurring again, possibly. And sometimes it's just really hard to tell how long a meeting will last.
I'm going to tell you that it's challenging, but I've done it many times, and you can bring discipline to those agendas where you figure out how long the meeting's going to be. And I would just challenge you to do that, rather than just have just a cookie cutter thing. Well, we're going to do this. We're going to set one at 9 and one at 11. As I said, there's an element, and I'm not saying you're being disrespectful, but there's an element of being respectful of people's time and their schedules.
Yes.
I'd appreciate if you'd make that effort. Thank you.
Any other comments? Thank you. Agenda item 2, consideration of approval of the minutes from the March 26, 2014 committee meeting.
Move approval.
Have a second? John, could I have a second?
Yes, ma'am.
All
Second.
right, thank you,
Sorry.
appreciate it. All in favor say aye.
Okay.
All opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item 3 is consideration of the approval of the consent calendar. Questions, discussion? The consent calendar, I need a motion.
So moved.
I'll second. I have a question, and it's again because I'm relatively new. Tell me again who determines what goes on the consent,
Right.
what goes on for consent, and what standard has to be met?
Go ahead.
You want me to try to answer that one? Okay. There is a discussion held between staff leadership and the committee chair about the entire agenda, usually done through a conference call, and we usually have a short conversation about each one of the agenda items, and then staff makes recommendations about those agenda items that tend to be rather innocuous or routine. Such as many of these are rule changes that are simply cleanup items in response to legislation or to changes in nomenclature by SAC COC. And so we would then recommend those items to be placed on the consent calendar, and that's done with the consent of the committee chair.
So if anything, it even has a sort of a hint of controversy or whatever, then of course it's not put on the consent list, right?
Especially if there's been any comments from the public or, and at any time, a member can remove or add to the consent calendar.
Well, good. Well,
Just like the rule changes, if we'd gotten a lot of comments from the field about them, then we would have placed them on as a regular agenda item rather than on the consent calendar.
Yeah, and obviously it's great for efficiency, but then we're really depending on you all not to allow something to be put on the consent that is possibly controversial that would, come back and be a problem for us.
That's a good point. We take several issues into consideration. For example, we don't put anything on the consent calendar which may be non-controversial but is nevertheless an important issue about which board members should be fully informed. So we will leave that on the agenda for discussion just as a point of information. But we're very sensitive not only to what seems to be or lack controversy, but also we take into account what board members should be well informed about.
So you might say you err on the side of putting
Right.
something on the
Absolutely.
regular agenda.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Good. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to clarify that.
So we have the consideration of the consent calendar.
I think we've had the motion in the second.
Are we ready for a vote? All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 4, any public testimony today? There is none registered. Item 5, we have 5A, a report to the Committee on the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley establishment of the new institution. Dr. John Hayek, Associate Vice Chancellor and Chief of Staff for Academic Affairs for the University of Texas System Office, will provide an update. Thank you for being here.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair and Vice Chair Steen and Commissioner. My name is John Hayek. I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor and Chief of Staff in the Office of Academic Affairs for the University of Texas System. And thank you very much for giving me a few minutes today to give you an update on the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley. It's a special project, and actually the President-elect, Guy Bailey, gives his regards. He was going to be here today, but he's actually down in the valley meeting with faculty and staff at University of Texas Brownsville and Pan American with the Chancellor today, and talking about a couple big things coming up over the next month. So he gives us regards, but he looks forward to providing updates to the committee, to the board in the future. And also, I certainly personally I have a special appreciation for the board as well. Before coming to Texas, I've been here for a couple of years. I spent about 10 years working at the State Higher Education Coordinating Board in Kentucky. So appreciate all the good work that you all do, and know that it can be challenging at times, but appreciate it very much. University of Texas Rio Grande Valley was established out of Senate Bill 24 in the 83rd legislative session, and signed into law in June of 2013. The institution abolishes the current UT Brownsville and UT Pan American and adds a medical school to really create the brand new institution, which is scheduled to be open its doors in the fall of 2015, with the medical school students starting in the fall of 2016. As you can imagine, establishing a new university is a massive project, massive task, thousands of specific tasks that need to be done. We've broken the process of planning for the new institution into really three distinct phases. We've just really ending up phase one here in April and May, which was really intended to do have some initial big ideas, big thinking around what the new institution is going to look like. The Board of Regents approved a list of guiding principles, and I'll go through a few of those in more detail in a couple slides. During phase one, we established a transition structure to kind of get the faculty and staff and leadership of the two institutions starting to work together to think about the new institution. There was actually some initial board allocations of PUF funds as well, which was a very large deal in terms of actually establishing the new institution. We were able to, in phase one, hire a founding dean of the medical school, Francisco Fernandez, who we brought to Texas from University of South Florida. Just an outstanding leader and really a community advocate, and is going to do just a phenomenal job down in South Texas. During this process, phase one, we also had a very significant collaborative effort with faculty and staff from both institutions, just bringing them together, getting them to know one another, just from a human perspective. And that really culminated in a symposium that we held in April down in South Texas, where working groups, about 45 to 50 working groups, hundreds of faculty and staff, met for about 5 or 6 months, putting recommendations related to the new institution on the table, and we were able to kind of report out on those to the board and to leadership in South Texas. And it was a great event. And just this past month, the Board of Regents made the decision on the founding president, which is Guy Bailey. He comes to us most directly from University of Alabama, but spent a number of years in Texas as president of Texas Tech, and he was provost at University of Texas San Antonio, so he knows the state well. He's kind of hitting the ground running. I think this is his second week on the job. And so I've been personally working with the project for the last year, and so we felt it was somewhat appropriate for me to kind of deliver the update today, since I've had a year on the job and he's had about 1 week. So, from day one, the Board of Regents of the University of Texas really envisioned the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley as being a different type of institution, and really being creating a new model for University of Excellence. And so to try to stimulate that thinking with the faculty and staff of the given institutions and the community members as a whole, they put forward and approved a set of 15 guiding principles to really direct the work. We've kind of highlighted a number of the catchphrases here from the guiding principles, but just wanted to touch on a few. The unique thing about the creation of the institution, again, is it is in some ways a merger of the two institutions, but in most ways it's really the creation of something new. But the challenge is that all the currently enrolled students at Brownsville and Pan American will automatically get enrollment at the new institution. So it's a new institution that will immediately on day one have 29,000 students. It will have 2,700 faculty and staff, and really will become on day one of the largest Hispanic serving institutions in the country. And from an access perspective, it's certainly a huge goal for the new institution to maintain that access and really to grow it. The chancellor's been quoted as, been asked a number of times, how big will this institution become in 2020 or 2025? And I think some of our early estimates, it could grow into 40,000 to 50,000, come 2030. So it's given the growth of the population in South Texas. But as I mentioned, the board is really interested in creating a new model of university excellence, really grounded in next generation technology. This is taking technology to really an advanced state in terms of using data and information analytics to drive student success. This is a situation where, for example, when a student clicks open their website, that it's not a generic website. It's a website that knows many things about that student. For instance, it could be a situation where a student, a student is prompted to go for the writing center because the system knows that, as a matter of fact, there's going to be a big writing project for that student coming due in 3 weeks. It's that level of advanced analytics that we're going to incorporate into this new institution. There are other things that the guiding principles also have focused on in terms of just the basic streamlining of the academic and administrative programs, the promotion of the arts and humanities in the new institution, and really kind of leveraging this notion of bicultural, bilingual, and biliterate aspects of the region. With the addition of the medical school, it's going to be focused on medical education, health education, and really require a very strong emphasis in STEM as well. A few other guiding principles that I just wanted to highlight was this notion of applied and translational research. Not only is this new institution going to be focused on student success, and when I talk about student success, these are, when we think about and talk with faculty and staff and leadership of the current institutions, we're talking about, trying to achieve graduation rates, four-year graduation rates of 75 or 80% for our students at UT Rio Grande Valley. And, those are numbers that are unheard of in terms of achievement for Hispanic-serving institutions around the country. But that's the level of expectation and aspiration that this new institution really will pursue from an excellence perspective. The other thing, though, in terms of guiding principles is really, getting the new institution to make sure that it has full community impact. And this is the notion focused on increasing the educational attainment in the region, focusing on increasing the health of the citizens of the region and the state, and really just overall improving the quality of life and standard of living for the citizens of South Texas. And in that, by achieving those guiding principles, really also helping the institution, given its geographic location, really serve as a gateway to the Americas, and leveraging that position in a very healthy way. Milestones achieved to this date. Again, I've spoken a little bit about these. The signing of the bill, the passage of the guiding principles. From an investment standpoint, the University of Texas Board has already approved $196 million of PUF funds for a number of new facilities in the Rio Grande Valley. When you look at the amount of investment in this region just over the last 3 years from a board perspective, it's been about $350 million. That includes this PUF allocation, also includes about $100 million over 10 years for the establishment of the new medical school, in addition to some investments in technology, marketing, and a number of other areas. It's obviously a very significant investment already, and more will come in the coming years. I mentioned the naming of the founding medical school dean and Francisco Fernandez, the working group reports that were finalized in April, the approval and naming of Dr. Guy Bailey as founding president. We also, in May, approved a policy for hiring faculty, bringing faculty into the new institution, as well as an initial list of degree offerings that the new institution will grant. Some things that are coming up over the next several months will be as we talked about the phases of the program, moving from phase 1 to kind of big idea, phase 2, which is what we're in right now, is really focused on creating an initial blueprint or strategic plan for the new institution. It's creating the organizational structure, it's including the business plan, it's looking at the facilities and the master plan, it's also looking at the admissions criteria. And you can see in terms of July, the board will be considering the admissions criteria both from an undergraduate and graduate perspective with RGV. And as we move into the fall, the organizational structure will become clear, and with that, we'll be able to look at the staffing needs that will be required of the new institution. We'll also be hitting the working on accreditation for the new institution this fall and early spring, with the anticipation of a June 2015 SACS board approval of the new institution and opening up the doors of the new institution of UT-RGV in the fall of 2015. With that, I thought I'd be short today and just kind of certainly available to answer any questions that you have on the new institution.
Daunting task. Looks like you're making great progress.
Yes, thank you.
As far as the existing institutions, will those continue to operate while you put this all together? What happens to the kids, that are currently, in the other universities there?
Sure. Yep. The current institutions will continue to operate, at really maximum capacity for the next 12 months. It's a requirement of any time you kind of do this type of consolidation, particularly on the accreditation front, that all of those current students all the current students will be enrolled at the new institution. And there'll be, teach-out plans for every one of those students to make sure that there's no gap in terms of or loss of or credits, so that there's a kind of a continuation of their program, so that's seamless and really that it's designed to promote student success.
And what will it be a comparable cost to what they're paying now? Do you anticipate a change in tuition?
We will begin kind of some of the business modeling here over the summer and into the fall. I mean, I would be surprised if it's dramatically different in terms of the cost structure right now. But I think there will be some interesting, I would anticipate some interesting ideas put on the table for maybe some alternative structures. Right now, I think the tuition fees at both the institutions is around $6,000 per year. And I think there's been some desire to think creatively in terms of how to bend that cost structure a little bit and try to create, some alternative options for students in terms of cost. So I think we'll stay tuned, for that discussion.
Thank you,
Raymond.
John, the two institutions that have been merged to create this new university were essentially regional institutions, which by our definitions means essentially focus on undergraduate education with limited graduate programs, a limited number of graduate programs. It sounds like you see a different role for this institution. Can you elaborate more on how you intend to define this institution? What the balance between graduate and undergraduate programs will be, and so forth?
Sure, I can do that a little bit, and I'm sure President Bailey will be very eager to do that, when he comes back and has more details on this. I think the board has been clear in terms of trying to get the institution to think of itself as kind of a new model of university excellence, and it may not fit, clearly into a traditional definition of a comprehensive institution or emerging research university. The goal is for it to be an emerging research university as defined by the board. But I think, as we look to the evolution of the institution, kind of how it's designed and how it's going to impact the community, I think it's going to look like a very different model of in terms of what a university acts like and how it focuses its attention on both student success, but also on the applied and translational research that will actually have a dramatic impact on the region. And so from a label perspective, I think it's been clear that, and the chancellor has communicated that the intention is to move forward with the aspiration of being an emerging research institution, university. But I think as I've seen kind of the discussions unfold, I think it's really going to be a new animal in the zoo, and I think it's going to be exciting to see how it really is able to focus both on student success in order to increase educational attainment and access in the region, but also to drive research capacity, particularly with the addition of the medical school. It hasn't been finalized, but we've read the stories in the paper on SpaceX potentially coming to South Texas, and in terms of that stimulating additional science and technology in the region. So I think it's an exciting time. It's certainly an historical and monumental opportunity. When President Bailey was asked kind of why he was interested in it, he told folks that he thinks it's the most interesting job in all higher education in the United States, and I think he's going to be an outstanding leader, and really look forward to seeing kind of how the institution evolves.
You've got a pretty ambitious timeline. We look forward to working with you on getting the degree programs approved and the medical school stuff taken care of.
Thank you. Yeah, your staff has been excellent so far. We've had a number of opportunities to interact with them, and appreciate all their work as well.
Talking to you, Kevin.
I would like to make sure that you consider competency-based studies in some of your degree plans, and that you also partner with some of the community colleges in the Valley, if you were here for our earlier discussion. Anyone else have any comments? Yes.
I had the pleasure of working with Guy Bailey when he was the provost at UTSA, and of course he did an outstanding job there, so you've got a wonderful president to start out with. Would you tell me a little bit more about Dr. Francisco Fernandez, who's the founding dean of the medical school?
Sure. He comes to us from the University of South Florida. And I think his background is psychiatry, but he's really kind of a big believer in community impact, and is already kind of hard at work. Has been at work for several months, trying to think about the structure of the new medical school. The accreditation process for the medical schools is rather lengthy and a lot longer, actually. Than
when will the medical school officially open and have students?
Right now, fall of 2016. That's where we're scheduled for. Yeah.
And you mentioned that SpaceX project, and so I visited the Brownsville campus. And are you familiar with the program they have there? And I want to say the students they're in physics or astronomy or something like that fits in
gravitational wave physics.
Yeah, Doctor, could you mention that? I think that's interesting. SpaceX, of course, is doing commercial space, launching into space, and it looks like they're going to put their site in Brownsville, and so they have this program at the University of Texas at Brownsville where these students are doing all this advanced work. But remind me about that. What is it?
Well, I don't know a whole lot about gravitational physics. I know that they've been working very closely with UTSA. They have a joint graduate program with UTSA, and they have been turning out some high-quality students in this particular specialty of physics. So they do have a foundation in that part of the state to do basic research in some areas of the sciences and some applied fields as well.
Yeah, I just was very impressed that they had that program going, and all these very committed students involved in it. And we talk about the STEM, the emphasis on STEM, and they're sure doing it down there. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a presentation from some of those students at a board meeting a number of months ago, and these students were phenomenal, just top notch. And we heard that a number of them are getting offers for graduate school at the best research institutions in the world. And so there's an extraordinary amount of talent in South Texas, and really the new institution is going to be designed to kind of to grab onto that and maximize it for the region.
Yeah, I went out to the facility. They make those rockets in California, pretty close to Disneyland. SpaceX does, right. But they can't test them in California, so they have to bring them to McGregor, Texas, which is outside of Waco, and that's where they do the testing for the rockets. And so it makes sense if they're taking them there, then they can drive them on down to Brownsville. And if that goes through, that's going to be interesting. But at least once a month, they'll be launching a rocket from Brownsville. And I think it's exciting that this university is going to be able to get involved with that, with SpaceX and Elon Musk and all the visionary things he's doing.
Where's McGregor, Texas?
It's just right outside of Waco.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Hyatt, for coming.
Appreciate it.
Item 5B is a report to the Committee on Activities of the Norman Hackerman Advanced Research Program. We have Dr. Robert Curl. Please come forward, and Dr. Steve Witten. Dr. Curl is the Pitzer Schlumberger Professor Emeritus at Rice, and Dr. Stephen Witten is the Assistant Professor, Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry at Texas State University. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Be sure you push the little button on your microphone and pull it towards you, please. Thank you.
Okay, how is that? Okay?
It's better.
I suspect that many of you are already familiar with the Norman Hackerman Advanced Research Program. That's an NHARP is unpronounceable, so we pronounce our acronym NHARP. Anyway, this program, of course, is designed to support advanced research in Texas. And I'd like to start out with a little rationale for why you want to have such a program. The first thing one has to think about for a moment is the incredible pace of innovation that we're living in. In fact, new things come along so rapidly and so often that we're beginning to be a little bit jaded. But I actually think that innovation is really accelerating. Well, innovation requires new knowledge. It requires the application of new knowledge, and in order to apply new knowledge, you really have to understand it. And so Texas needs a workforce of people who understand new knowledge because they've actually been involved in creating it. And so this is what the Norman Hackerman Research Program is all about. Now, the legislature provides the program with a certain amount of money. We'll get into that in a minute. And it's the job of ACOR and the staff here at Higher Education Coordinating Board to distribute this money and distribute it in the best way possible. We think that the best way possible is by peer review. So our applications for grant support are reviewed by outside, typically professors that don't live in the state of Texas, don't have any dog in the fight. And we try to get them to rank order the applications for grants in the order of how much they deserve to be funded. And then effectively what we do is we see how much money we have. We have to make sure that it's that it's divided fairly much. And so we have chosen roughly grants of the order of $100,000 for a biennium, and we go down the list until we run out of money. So it's sort of a no-hands operation in that sense. The main thing that we're concerned about is supporting the best research And we have supported a lot of research. We've supported education of more than 10,000 undergraduate and graduate students. The research has been used to provide a basis for proposals to get grants from federal funding agencies and other agencies to leverage the output. And although professors have this reputation of living in ivory towers, most of them are quite eager, actually, to found companies, startup companies, and put their ideas to work in practical ways. And certainly the grants from NHARP have spawned startup companies. Now, the pressure for funds far exceeds anything that we can manage. If you look at the chart, you notice that the funding was running along at $20 million from the late 80s. And then in 2003, it was taken to zero, actually by veto of the governor. And then it recovered for a while in the aughts. And then in the recent years, the last couple of biennia, it's been dropped down to $1 million. Well, when we had $20 million, we had a lot more applications than we could fund. We was open to any professor in any scientific discipline, and typically we'd get something in the order of 3,000 pre-proposals, and that would be whittled down by a pre-proposal process to something manageable for the reviewers to do. And we wound up making about 150 grants, at least when we were at the $16 million level. So with $1 million, that's crazy. You know, you can't imagine. You'd spend all your money getting proposals reviewed if you get 3,000 proposals. So when we got such short funding, what we did, we said the rules have to be changed to restrict the number of proposals we get. What we did was chose that only early career faculty members, which we've defined, I think, in the first 6 or 7 years of faculty being in the faculty, could apply, and that there would only be 2 fields supported. And we had the intent of changing these 2 fields each biennium so that everybody would eventually, or at least every department would eventually get a chance to do it, get to apply. With those criterion, it turns out that we still had this last competition, which we've just completed, we still had 303 proposals. And that was going to cost too much money, and we don't want to take the money for doing the vetting has to come out of the money, the $1 million that we got. So we asked each university to reduce, to do their own selection through the pre-proposals, and we gave them an allotment. Every university got at least one opportunity to send in a pre-proposal, and the ones that had a history of having a large number of grants, like the big universities, essentially got larger allocations. Anyway, that got it down to about 150 pre-proposals. Then by that time, we had our panels in place, the 2 panels. And they do all their work by telephone conference. They went through the pre-proposals and cut it down, as I recall, to about 40. Sometimes you have to look at notes. The original, just to give you an idea of the numbers involved, the original number number of allowed pre-proposals was $15 million. Then the pre-proposals were screened to get down to 45 submission to full proposals for a total of a little over for about $4.5 million. And then this last biennium, the thing you're considering now, we had a total of 11 grants, totaling $990,000. So the $10,000 was the 1% used to do the screening. So the point I would like to make is that I think this is a great program. I think it's grossly underfunded. And we, in addition to the baseline funding of $1 million, the ACOR, the Advisory Committee on Research Programs, strongly recommends that an extraordinary item of $7 additional million be included, be supported by the Higher Education Board. Because we clearly see a much greater need than we could possibly fulfill, and yet, with the amount of money we have, I think we're still doing something important. Now, this is Professor Whitten from Texas State University nearby, and he's going to talk a little about his research. He has a research from the he has a grant from the 2011 biennium.
Thank you.
Be sure you turn on your microphone.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Could you change the slide, please? Okay, thank you. First off, thank you for this opportunity to speak, and I'll be brief here. Just to give you an idea of at least the research that was funded by the NHARP program, what we do is we study protein molecules. These are molecules inside of all of us, and they can really be thought of as little machines that are capable of converting chemical potential to physical work, allowing us to do what it is that we do, all these amazing things. And so a lot of what our job is reverse engineering, and that's really what this project is, figuring out how best to structurally characterize them. What do they look like? What are their components? How are the components arranged? How do the motions in one component, how are they correlated to the motions in the other? Because that allows us to figure out how these machines work. This project directly feeds into two other funded projects in my group, one from the NSF that is involved with understanding the structural transitions that lead to Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, Huntington's diseases. And also another one that has to do with understanding cell signaling and some of the pathways that have been linked to cancers. But that's just the science side of things. And what I'd really like to emphasize is maybe an added benefit of this funding that probably isn't as obvious to everyone else. To start off with that, I'll introduce some of the students, and this is a small sampling. The gentleman on the left in that photo, that's Tim Langridge. He's a guy who finished with a bachelor's degree last year. He didn't want to go on to graduate school, but from these sort of research activities where he was able to get extra training, able to document his training. He's first author on a publication that acknowledges coordinating board support. He had multiple job offers. One, a really good one from Merck that he turned down because he didn't want to move to Virginia. Instead, he accepted a position in Houston at MD Anderson. The next gentleman, James Campbell, another graduate of our department, trained in the lab, multiple opportunities for graduate school. He chose Baylor College of Medicine, earning his PhD. Fastest person in that department to ever get to the oral stage where they orally defend their education. And a lot of that's from these sort of research activities where they jump in and they dive in and they learn these things more than out of a textbook. The next person, Lisa Schaub, another graduate. She's now a scientist at a military research facility in San Antonio. The next person, Jessica Tracy. She's working towards her PhD in biophysics at Texas A&M. And to kind of give you an idea of the dollars associated with these sort of opportunities, there's another student, Reagan Meredith, who this spring graduated and was offered a full ride to earn his PhD in biochemistry at Notre Dame, where he'll be starting in the fall. So tuition at Notre Dame is $48,000 a year. The stipend is $27,000. There's fringe benefits involved. There's research support for his training there. And if you consider that the average PhD student takes about 5 to 6 years to earn his or her PhD, that's roughly a $500,000 investment in Reagan. You know, born and raised in New Braunfels, $500,000 investment in him from Notre Dame, and it's largely from these sort of research activities where he's able to be trained in these ways, go to conferences, show off what he knows. And while these positions, jobs, and academic positions, there's huge stacks of applicants. All of them have outstanding GPAs, come from good schools. It's these sort of things that allow them to rise to the top and have such better opportunities, both career-wise and advancement, and from investments like this in these sort of research activities. And so this is probably where the biggest bang for your buck, so to speak, comes from. And this is just a small sample. And many students who are touching this way, whose doors are opening for them in this very competitive, technology-driven environment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to second this business about involving students in research. He's talking primarily about undergraduate students, and I've shepherded both kinds. And the thing about it is that if you actually discover some new fact and learn exactly how it was that this is true, it's a whole lot more valuable than studying a textbook and being told that something is true. So I think the advantages of research as an educational
Very good.
an educational tool is fantastic. Anyway, can't stop without reminding you that the advisory committee, and me in particular, would certainly like to see more funding for the Norman Hackerman.
I gathered that. I think we do have a question.
Doctor, thank you for that presentation. And this is because I still consider myself relatively new. So you're before us today, and you're saying that this program's grossly underfunded. And I'm looking at this summary of your remarks. It ends by said it should be expanding it by returning it to full funding. So my question is, what role do we play in that, Commissioner?
Well, this is.
I mean, he's before us asking for this. Is this something that we have the ability to?
We are. The board is going to discuss a variety of exceptional items for our legislative appropriations request, and there will be one of the items will be higher levels of support for this program.
All right, and who was Norman Hackerman?
Norman Hackerman was the president of UT Austin. He was the president of Rice University.
Okay.
He was the chair of the National Science Board, which was the advisory board to the National Science Foundation.
All right.
And Professor Curl is a Nobel Prize winner in chemistry.
Oh, my gosh. Honored to have you here. Gosh.
If I could say something briefly about Norm Hackerman, since I had the opportunity to work with him one way or another for 15 years. When you're talking about students, and there was a point even earlier where we needed to defend some of this with 2 or 3 governors back, his point was that there's no better opportunity for technology transfer than for students, undergraduate students, to work in a lab on cutting-edge research and go directly to industry. So he was emphasizing that even though, in this particular program is focused on basic research, but we also had an advanced technology program, by the way, which is $40 million. So there's been even a greater reduction than this might appear. But he heavily emphasized that, and even as a president, he still taught. So he was a very special person. I've met students over the years that were both undergraduates in Rice and UT Austin that had gotten to know him, even as he was. At many schools they would have never met him. So I just thought very highly of him, and have to mention that.
Mm-hmm. One more question. So this program is totally dependent on state funding. And my question would be, is there any effort made to go into the private sector or get funding in other ways to make up that gap?
Well, the in-house money is lots of federal agencies would be happier to fund somebody's research if there was some evidence that there was promise in it, that there were going to be interesting results coming out of it, things that are worth funding. And one of the ways that this program works is it's used as a basis for proposals to primarily federal agencies. We also have the Welch Foundation in Texas, which supports, it's a private foundation supporting chemistry. So for the chemists, this Norman Hackerman program covers the bases. It covers all areas of physical and biological sciences. But the Welch Foundation is just for chemistry. But there are other foundations. We have a colleague who's got a Packard Foundation fellowship. So by a lot of the principal investigators from the Norman Hackerman program, the people that got grants, try to leverage their grant by writing proposals to other agencies using some of the results from the Hackerman program as evidence that they're getting somewhere, they know what they're doing, they're actually publishing. So, for example, you have proposals in. I noticed from the slide for $615,500.
Yeah, so I can say a couple of words on that, and this kind of speaks back to why students with training and able to demonstrate productivity have so much better opportunities where companies and other universities are going to take a chance on them rather than somebody else in their applicant pile because they're less of a risk. They've demonstrated that they can do these sort of things, and it's the same sort of issue with the early career investigators. If you get a competitive award earlier and you're able to show that you can produce based upon that investment, you're less of a risk to these other funding agencies, be it federal or private, and none of those funding agencies like to waste their money, and so these sort of things kind of prove the point that what you're working on is viable and that you're not going to waste their money. You're less of a risk in that regard.
But since its inception, this program has only been driven by state funds. There have been no outside funds that have been used.
This is a state fund. You bring up something that I have to admit, as a chair of ACOR, that I've never even thought about. I have no idea what ramifications of state law would be involved in somehow or another trying to get private industry to contribute money to go with the NHARP, and that was directly associated with the NHARP money. It may be quite possible, but it sort of seemed to me like an oil and water issue in terms of the possible bureaucracies that might be involved.
Well, thank you very much for coming today. We're so honored to have you here. What was your Nobel Prize in? Chemistry. So, Professor Whitten, how does it feel to be sitting next to a Nobel Prize winner? Pretty special, huh?
Regular guy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen, so much. Item 5C is a report to the Committee on Activities of the Lower Division Academic Course Guide Manual Advisory Committee. We have the co-chairs here today from the Advisory Committee, Dr. Andrew Wallace and Dr. Sharon Blackman. They will provide an update. As they're coming forward, Dr. Wallace is the Dean of Freshman College and Professor of Physics at Angelo State University, and Dr. Sharon Blackman is the Provost, Education Affairs at the Dallas County Community College District. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us here. The Lower Division Academic Course Guide Manual is the official list of courses that two-year public colleges and technical colleges can offer in the state of Texas. It also is concerned with the general transferability of these courses to four-year institutions. We're charged with adding courses, deleting courses, updating maybe a course description in response to new fields of study, obsolete fields of study, or just even a particular course. Right. We met last fall and approved some changes in course descriptions, and we added some learning outcomes for several disciplines that were recommended to us by the Learning Outcomes Project and then the Texas Tuning Initiative. Would you like to? Okay.
In the spring, we met in order to review courses, a list of courses that were not being offered by colleges or underutilized at colleges. We have a very large inventory of courses, and so we reviewed 1,035 courses and recommended the deletion of 381 courses with the further review of 72 courses. So again, it is our responsibility to ensure that the courses that are being offered through the curriculum at the various institutions are in sync with the needs of our community and those of our students. With this, we are recommending the acceptance of our report in regards to the work of the ACGM committee.
Can you give us some examples of what you're talking about? About adding learning disciplines?
A learning outcome?
Right.
Student learning outcomes?
Or all of them, for that matter.
Well, for example, changes driven by accreditation, say for colleges or businesses, have required the Business Math 1 and 2, or Finite Math 1 and 2 as it's now referred to have some course description updates. In addition to that, learning outcomes, student learning outcomes, in other words, the student will know or the student will be able to do upon completion of this course, have been added to the ACGM. For example, I'm just picking on the two business courses, business math courses, so that when faculty are putting together a syllabus on their campus and they're going to teach, say, that Finite Math 1 course, they've got the course description. They also have the student learning outcomes there about what a student should be able to know and do upon completion of the course. That will facilitate transfer from the 2-year to the 4-year because those learning outcomes are there defined in the manual.
That answers my question. Okay. So this helps align the courses at a 2-year university so that those courses are transferable.
Yes.
But they may not be universally transferable?
They are. The ACGM provides the colleges, community colleges, to offer courses, and they all offer the same courses so that they all have the same student learning outcomes, so that when those courses are transferable to the 4-year institution, they are very clear about what that student was expected to learn in that particular course. So it does assist with the ease of transferability of those particular courses, and for that discussion to take place among the 2-year and 4-year faculty members to continue with the learning at the upper division as to this is what was learned at the 2-year college, and here are the types of content that is necessary for us to continue that education at the 4-year level.
So I have a question. Next step, when this is only information for us today, we're not voting on this, is what's the next step? So if you make this mandatory and the colleges are not in agreement, what do? They can appeal to us, or?
Yes, well, what happens is once a course is recommended for deletion, it actually stays in the ACGM for another 2 years. And during that 2-year time period, then institutions are quite free, and I've already heard from one, to say we don't want this course deleted and why, and then we kind of compile and gather that information and we'll take it back to the ACGM committee for their further consideration. And indeed, if there's enough institutions out there who say we need this course and have a rationale for it, then then the committee may then recommend that they not be deleted after all. But there is a 2-year time period put on that so that institutions can both make the adjustments they need in their degree programs, but also allow them to make the argument that they should be kept in. And I think it's important to note that if you go back and look at the list of courses that were submitted for deletion, a substantial number of these courses have not been offered by any college in the past 5 years. And some of them, a lot of them have only been offered by 1 or 2 colleges in the past 5 years. So you're really talking about a lot of courses that are rarely utilized at all. And I think the transfer issue is a big piece of this and help facilitate that.
So historically, how often do we do this pruning session?
Well, it sort of goes on every time the ACGM meets. Okay. But I think this is the first time that in a while, it predates my arrival here, that there's been a really systematic look at virtually every course in the ACGM, and it really started with an analysis of how often have these courses been offered over the past few years, and they use that as our starting point, and then used at least 2 meetings, I think, to conduct the review of these in terms of what needs to be deleted or not.
Thank you very much.
I would just like to add, for information only, if 3 or fewer community colleges offer the course, the ACGM is charged with looking at it.
With reviewing it?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. Item 5D is consideration of adopting the Undergraduate Education Advisory Committee's recommendation to the committee relating to the implementation of the 60 semester credit hour limit for associate degrees. Rex.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And we have with us today Dr. Ann Kinnemer, who will actually speak to the UEAC's recommendations.
And Dr. Kinnemer is the Associate Provost for Undergraduate Studies at Texas A&M University. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for committee members for giving us an opportunity, and me an opportunity on behalf of the UEAC, to present our recommendations regarding implementation of the 60 credit hour limit for associate degrees. Serious discussions about the 60 credit hour limit started within UEAC at their fall meeting. And there was a good commitment on behalf, particularly of our institutions that offer 2-year programs, to meet the spirit of the credit limit. But there were also concerns about how they could balance meeting that commitment, but also meet accreditation requirements, prepare students for licensure following their graduation, to facilitate the preparation of students who may have entered their institution not quite ready to be successful in those degree programs, to accommodate the needs of programs that required significant practical experiences as part of the degree program, and to facilitate transfer of students between one institution and another. And generally, the members of UEAC felt that there was just a need for additional guidance on how to go about navigating the implementation of the 60 semester credit hour limit. And the recommendation out of the fall meeting was that a subcommittee of UEAC would get together at a later date to investigate these topics in depth. That meeting happened in February, and the subcommittee's report, as it was approved by the full UEAC, is attached to the blue sheet in your agenda for item 5D. The subcommittee's report takes 3 parts. The first part really is just some examples and some suggestions on what might be considered for predefined, compelling academic reasons that may be appropriate for degree programs that could not exactly meet the 60 credit hour requirement. And some of the things that were included in that include licensure requirements and preparing students for licensure exams, accreditation requirements for those programs that carry program-specific accreditation, the needs of the industries that are served by that institution, integration of clinical practices and other hands-on experiences as part of the degree program, use of courses as they are defined in the ACGM and the WECM, integration of college success courses to help students be successful as they progress through their degree program. And the second bullet, or the last bullet, excuse me, is just other programs or other compelling reasons as might be appropriate to the institution. And so our recommendation is that these be provided as examples for schools that are going to be implementing the 60 credit hour limit so that they have an idea of what types of compelling reasons might be available to them. The second recommendation coming from the UEAC subcommittee was that coordinating board staff be tasked with assisting with information gathering and facilitating conversations across schools that are dealing with this implementation. In particular, we feel that data gathering about what is being exempted from the 60 hours or compelling reasons that are coming up at other institutions could be useful to schools that are seeking to benchmark their progress against the progress of others, and it might provide some opportunities for schools to seek assistance from others in sharing best practices and developing plans of actions that might be appropriate on their own campus. And the third recommendation is that there be some flexibility in the implementation of the 60 credit hour limit for select programs where the schools are anticipating that there could be some difficulty in meeting the competing requirements and goals that they are trying to meet with their academic programs. This applies to some of the fields that require accreditation. This particularly seems to be an issue in nursing and some of the other allied health fields. It also applies to some of the workforce education programs. The subcommittee's report was unanimously approved by UEAC in its March meeting, and so I'm here today to seek your approval of these recommendations.
Members?
I think this is, thank you very much for doing this, and it looks like you've done a thorough job, and I think it's pretty straightforward. I'd move approval.
Second.
We have a motion? Yes?
On the, excuse me. On the second page, under the supported justifications, it's other compelling reasons that are defined by the institution. Is that pretty broad? That's kind of, I understand it's a catch-all, but if we were mandated to have the 60 hours and then it's like, except
I think this is kind of a shift that's going to be done in baby steps. And I want to basically commend you for this hard work because I know this wasn't easy. I heard from people too. And
conversation, yes. And if I may address your question about the other compelling reasons, we recognized, especially as the task force was meeting to try to develop these samples, that there was no way that we could predefine compelling reasons that would be appropriate to every university. And so we didn't want to close the door on other issues that might be appropriate for a program. We wanted to leave that option open.
But I think that you've made it very clear that as colleges come forward with new programs, this is really what we want. And that's really where we're moving.
Thank you. And I do believe that there is a genuine commitment to meet the spirit of this. There's just some recognition that there's going to be a few places where it's difficult to hit 60 exactly.
Other comments or questions? We have a motion on the floor. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The motion passes. Thank you so much. So item 5E is consideration of adopting the Applied Texas Advisory Committee's recommendation to the committee relating to the cost effectiveness of a common application for nursing. Rex.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to actually just turn this over to Dr. Ethan Logan and Mr. Trey Hadaway. Dr. Logan is the chair of the Applied Texas Advisory Committee, and Trey Hadaway is the co-chair of the Applied Texas Advisory Committee. And this deals specifically with the charge to that committee to look at a common application for nursing programs. And so they've looked at this issue and have some recommendations. So,
thank you, sir. Madam Chair, Board, and Commissioner, we're really glad to be able to spend some time with you this afternoon and talk to you a little bit about Apply Texas Advisory Committee and our recommendations for the Nursing Common Application potential future item for consideration. A brief background about the Apply Texas Committee and where we come from. The 1997 Senate Bill 105 of the 75th Regular Session Legislature created the Common Undergraduate Application Program for Texas for general academic teaching institutions, which was later amended in 05 to then include public state colleges and public technical institutions. And as a part of that creation included the appointment of an advisory committee to the coordinating board made up of member institutions who use the Common Application for access and application to public institutions of higher education. The application platform, the Apply Texas platform, is 100% funded by the institutions who use the application platform. The annual fee is based on enrollment, and that is apportioned or appointed apportionment based upon the number of applications that each institution receives. And so it's a self-funded initiative to provide a common application platform that we all use within the state in the undergraduate community, and it has evolved into the graduate level international student application, as well as 4-year and 2-year schools. Approximately, the cost is approximately runs about 75 cents per app received currently for institutions. The membership structure of the committee includes 11 members of universities, 11 members of junior college or community college representatives, one private institution represents our private and independent institution membership, and a student representative. We meet quarterly here at the coordinating board to serve as an advisory function to review the revisions for the application on an annual basis, and also to talk about how we want to apportion the time that we have for development each year to develop the next round or the next year's application. And then we also meet annually to host a conference, a users conference for all of our member institutions. In fact, we're meeting this Friday at the Pickle Center just down the road, where we'll be talking about the next generation of the application for 2015, the introduction of that piece, and to meet with our constituency of institutions who use the Common Application and talk about the revisions and the changes for the next year. To give you an idea of what kind of volume we look at in the state of Texas for the Apply Texas application across all of our application types, you can see that we're generating about 1.35 million applications for the 2013-2014 cycle. It's been a very successful program and is heavily used by our students in the state. Of those, about 60-40 breakdown between 4-year and 2-year institution types who use and receive applications of that 1.35 million. And so that is a very slim margin. We're very much almost equal partners in terms of the usage across 4-year and 2-year institutions. Since the inception of the application and what we've been able to do with the application, every year you can expect that we've got the application in a pretty good shape in terms of how it exists and what it is and what kind of opportunities and information exist in the application. So the continuation and development of the application is one of refinement over each year in reaction to the needs of the states and the constituent institutions, but also enhancements to make this program a better program for all of our members. And such initiatives that have taken place and they're developing include initiatives such as we provide a counselor suite for all of our high school counselors who will be able to access information about their students at their institution who are applying to institutions, 2- and 4-year institutions in the state. So they have actual information about their students' application and the application status, whether or not they finish their application and so forth. We have also this year included a FAFSA initiative or interaction or integration, where we have the actual information about students' FAFSA information, which is downloaded to Apply Texas server so that their high school counselors can actually look at their status. Not only can they see their status in terms of their application completion, but they can also see if they've also applied for the FAFSA and whether or not they are completed with that information as well. Moving forward, we're including a T-REX interface. The T-REX standard is the TEA program that provides electronic high school transcript transmission between member public or independent school districts within the state. That's also the system that public institutions and private institutions of higher education use for the receipt of high school transcripts when available and when they're delivered electronically. The T-REX interface is going to allow for students a one-stop process of when they apply on Apply Texas, they will also be able to do two things: self-populate the FAFSA information, which we talked about, but also electronically request a delivery of a high school transcript to their institution of higher education that they're applying towards. Just in terms of making this a streamlined, efficient, and more effective policy and process for getting them closer to admission to an institution. And then finally, the nursing application, the question that we came to respond to today, to talk a little bit about the nursing application, the common nursing application format. House Bill 2099 of the 83rd Texas Legislature discussed the assistance of the advisory board and the coordinating board to determine the cost effectiveness of adopting an electronic common admission application form for undergraduate nursing education programs. And so the effort of this process, to determine cost effectiveness, coordinating board developed a common application of Apply Texas as a model to use that as a potential platform to move forward with the development of the common nursing application. To look at cost effectiveness, the advisory committee, the Apply Texas Advisory Committee, put together a subcommittee to serve and serve as a group to monitor and to recommend opportunity for the development of the common nursing application. The coordinating board published a request for applications to take of all the member institutions who wanted to participate about the application process, how they were currently enrolling nursing students. The coordinating board staff analyzed institutional applications submitted by this task force, and then the Apply Texas subcommittee and coordinating board staff convened with the task force to provide an opportunity for input and discussion from the members present. There was a request for funding, request for application. 38 institutions had responded in the state to talk about the ways and processes as stakeholders of how they were admitting nursing students to their programs. When we hosted the stakeholders meeting on February 24th of this year, we had 44 institutional representatives, 7 committee members from the Apply Texas Committee, 3 Apply Texas technical staff, and 2 coordinating board staff members who took part in that conversation. We hosted that event here in this very room where we met with those members to discuss their means, their concerns about first how they were accepting applications for nursing students, concerns that they had about a common application, and what they needed to see to go forward for that to take place. There was also a continuation of electronic discussion that followed where stakeholders were able to provide questions and answers on electronic forum through the College Town Hall, Texas, which allowed them to continue the conversation past our stakeholders meeting. The recommendation going forward from the Apply Texas Advisory Committee was that it would be cost-effective and beneficial to create a common nursing application program for all nursing programs in the state who do not currently have an online service in place, and recommends that the coordinating board move forward with the developing a common nursing education application. That the allocation of Apply Texas I-Team every year that we have, we can subsistently provide support with in terms of the development of the common application in our current process and structure. And then we can create a subcommittee of nursing representatives to provide advisory and oversight in the development of that common application and then the implementation of that program going forward. That we are not requiring the application of institutions that currently have a program in place that they are very prone or very tied to in terms of their use, but to provide for a common application for any institution to use in the event that they do not have a program in place for application, or if they would like to switch to a common application for the state. And that's our quick information that we wanted to share with you today, and I hope that meets with your consideration for this item going forward. If there's any questions, we'd be happy to try to address those.
A great presentation, and just a question, what does Madam Chair think of this?
Well, I think it actually is a great, I'm all about being electronic. If you can do anything electronic, you should do it. I'm assuming that if I'm a student and I'm going in to apply, I can complete the application, then I can just check the schools I want it to go to.
That's correct.
So you see how easy it is, and I particularly like the part where you have the high school counselors having access to work with students. That's beautiful. So
I move approval.
Mm-hmm.
Second.
But if someone had their own program, when you check that box, it doesn't automatically go to them.
If we set it up the same way that we set it up for the state, then yes, we could do that.
Okay.
That's not a problem.
Other questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Item 5F is consideration of adopting the Family Practice Residency Advisory Committee's recommendation to the committee relating to the distribution of funds, trust deed to the coordinating board to support family practice residency programs for fiscal year 2015, and the report on trust deed funds distributed in fiscal year 2014. Rex.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This recommendation in this particular agenda item is to approve funding for the Family Practice Residency Program, and there are two current trustee programs that the coordinating board operates, and one is a joint admissions medical program, which has, in essence, has already been funded and really doesn't require any action on the part of the board. However, the Family Practice Residency Program that supports residencies for both family practice and also rural rotations as well is coming before you for approval to expend these funds. And we have Roland Gertz with us today, and Dr. Silverman is also here to answer questions about this. So I would go ahead and let them say a few words about this proposal, and then we will open it up to questions.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Peebles, and I really appreciate, Madam Chair, the opportunity to be before you, the Commissioner, and other members of the committee and the coordinating board. It's been a while since I've been able to address any of the coordinating board because it's been sort of straightforward, you know, how the programs have operated, but with turnover and new individuals, I really appreciate a chance to say a few things about this program. By the way, I will not use any slides. I'm going to hit some high points in a verbal way, and then at the when I come to the recommendations, I'll refer to what's in your agenda book. I'm Roland Gertz. I've been chair of the advisory committee for at least 12 years, and I've been involved with the advisory committee since 1988. When I started, I did not have gray hair. I say that to you not because I want to impress you in any way, shape, or fashion, but because I want you to understand the passion that I and many others have for this program and the critical importance it has had through the years to locations such as where I am and have been for the last 17 years, which is Waco, Texas, and McLennan County. And Chairman Hahn, I can tell you McGregor is 14 miles away, and I can feel and hear SpaceX when they test rocket engines. And I've been chair of the Chamber of Commerce of Greater Waco, and they have been incredible community members. They have really been good community members.
Mr. Gertz, take a moment and just tell us about yourself. What's your background? And it amazes me you've been involved in this so long. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mr. Steen. All I ever wanted to be was a country doctor. I went back to Bastrop, Texas after training. Went to medical school in San Antonio and trained at Peter Smith in Fort Worth and practiced in Bastrop until the little hospital there closed. It was a result of essentially how Medicare changed its payment structure in October of 1983. It's etched in my mind. And then I left that location. I've always been interested in teaching. Went to Waco originally when a program that used to be funded by the coordinating board and the state legislature, the fellowship program, was still in existence. And I did a clinical academic fellowship to help me understand what teaching was about, and have been in various fashions related to that since. I was director of the program in Corpus Christi, which is part of this program. I was chairman of the Department of Family and Community Medicine at UT Houston for a while, and I've been at Waco since 1997. I appreciate being able to say that. I wasn't going to address that, but I appreciate that. You might ask, I might add also, one of the reasons that Waco was intriguing to me is that the Family Medicine Residency Training Program there was created in 1969. and has been in existence and operating for 43 years. To give you an example of how important it's been to the area, there are 123 family doctors that practice in McLennan County. Over half of them were trained by the program, and they would not be there. A good portion would not be there without the help of the coordinating and coordinating board's funds and trustee funds from the legislature. I'll address that just briefly in a historical perspective. Public Law 282 was passed in 1977 by, in fact, a legislator from Waco, and it created this program. And since then, literally hundreds of family physicians have been assisted in their training by this program and practice in Texas. A full 70+% of every graduate of the family medicine residency programs in the state have stayed in the state. It has, for example, in our area, if you look at Medicare data for cost per capita per year, and we have 2 hospitals that do full services, we are one of the lowest cost per capita for Medicare patients in the country, and we're the lowest in the state. We're compared to the lowest in the state. I would suppose to you that it's very congruent with Dartmouth data that show that you have a strong presence of primary care that prevents and works with patients in a personal care way. And many other areas of the state, unfortunately, don't have that luxury. The program has really survived intact through lots of ups and downs of the state, particularly related to budgeting. The original intent of the legislation that created it, and I know that because I talked to the person who primarily sponsored it, was to support 20% roughly of the cost of a program. I've had very interesting discussions with some of the LBB individuals over the last 12 months about why more for family medicine training programs versus other specialty training programs, and I'd be happy to try and address that in questions that follow. But the bottom line is that the cost of running clinics outside of the routine walls of a hospital are significantly more costly to operate than it is, for example, a surgery program where the hospital simply embeds the cost of a room next door to the operating suite or something else like that. And the clinics are the all-important pieces for family medicine training versus other specialties. The last 10 years have not been very kind, particularly the last 5 sessions to the program. The most unkind of all was the funding session of 2011. You'll notice that in graphs, I think that you have that the per capita funding was reduced from $14,000 per year to $4,000 per year. And thank goodness, in my opinion, the legislature in its last session replaced a doubling of that. We will be able to go back up to and are currently in this current year up at an $8,000 per year funding level. Now, that pales in comparison with the costs that have escalated the 37 years since the program has been in place. But that percent of overall cost that the coordinating board dollars support is very critical because they replace dollars that are virtually impossible to find in any other way. The hundreds of family physicians that have stayed in the state are practicing in virtually every county of the state, in every county that can support a full practice. There are some that whether the individuals who live there are not admitted, it's very difficult to find a business model that can support them in those counties. So the overall numbers are in the hundreds, and the overall people impact are in the thousands, if not a million by now through the 37 years of the program. I think what I'll do with that is cut to the recommendations from the advisory committee and then end with offering to address any questions that you might have for me. If you'll, and I'm going to literally, go over what's in that agenda item 5F in your packets. The advisory committee now handles a minimum number of programs specifically the residency support process and two other programs, a public health rotation that was put in place by Representative DeLisi and Senator Nelson a few years back, and rural rotations that have been in place for quite some time. You might ask why 56 rural rotations are proposed and 3 public health rotations, and those are basically based on existing experience of demand from those who request them. And they're parceled out in as best a way as possible fairly to those who might apply for those positions. There will be approximately, we believe, 730 or so residents in all 3 levels of training when we fix that number in September of this year, which is how the traditional method has been done. And we estimate that will be about $8,737 per capita that goes to the program of record through the accrediting bodied program to receive those dollars to support that program. The average reliance, because we do fiscal reports every year and have for many years, is anywhere between 3 and about 8 or 9% of the overall funding for programs will be represented by this amount, which of course has gone up considerably since it's doubled from the sessions of 12 and 13. And that comes very close to expending the second half of the biennium money that was approved by the legislature and trusteed to you to spend in this fashion. I'd be happy to try and address any questions. I'll ask Dr. Silverman if she has anything to add, and then I'll be quiet.
I do not have anything to add about the family practice. I'll briefly touch on the Joint Admissions Medical Program after you all are done, or I can do that right now.
Do we have any questions for Dr. Gertz? All right, we'll go ahead.
So Dr. Scott Wright, who is the Executive Director of the Joint Admission Medical Program, was scheduled to be here, but he unfortunately had to get on a plane at 1 o'clock, so he is not here. The Joint Admissions Medical Program, or we call it JAMP, is an outreach effort to encourage economically disadvantaged students to pursue an education and go on and become a physician in Texas. The program is a unique program. It's been in place since 2003 and actually is funded out of the Texas Medical and Dental Application Service. So somewhat similar to Apply Texas, the medical schools in Texas have their own application process, which has been in place for many, many years. That actually houses the Joint Admissions Medical Program as well. That program now provides a guarantee to specific students. If they move through, they're a JAMP student, they move successfully through the program, they are guaranteed admission into a Texas medical school. The first cohort of JAMP students graduated from medical school in 2010. 71% remained in Texas to pursue their residency training. 66% pursued residency in primary care. So there is no action on that. I just wanted to mention the Joint Admissions Medical Program to you and let you all be reminded of it. I'm sure it will come back to you because we'll be asking for additional funding as it's an exceptional item in your budget.
So this is an action item?
Yes.
And we're being asked to approve to fund the Family Practice Residency Program in fiscal year 2015 and accept the report. Is that right, Dr. Peebles?
Yes, that is correct.
And you all are all for this?
Yes.
And what level are we funding it?
I'm sorry?
You're saying funding it at what level?
It's about $6,496,000 is the projected figure. As Dr. Gertz pointed out, we won't know the exact number of residencies until September, but we have almost $6.5 million to appropriate and then to spend on this program, and then we'll appropriate virtually all of it.
Doctor, thank you for your good work on this. I move approval.
Thank you. We have a motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could make just one comment. If the opportunity affords itself and residency slots are expanded in the state, I think the advisory committee and everything we represent stand ready to help do so.
All right, thank you. Item 5G is consideration of adopting the Certification Advisory Council's recommendation to the committee relating to the Accrediting Council for Continuing Education and Training, being recognized as an accrediting agency in Texas. Rex.
Thank you. This is to recognize the Accrediting Council for Continuing Education and Training, and we have with us Alan, is it? Runge. I'm sorry, I could not remember, and we've met before, unfortunately. But he is the chair of the Certification Advisory Council that has is the main advisory body for coordinating board staff for what we refer to as Chapter 7 schools, which are typically proprietary schools in the state of Texas that operate here. And so I'm going to turn it over to him and let him present the recommendation to you.
Okay, and just protocol-wise, I don't know if I should read the whole thing, but in summary, the item before you with the summarize.
You can summarize, yes.
That's what it seemed was going on. But we put before you a consideration. We had 2 meetings working with the Accrediting Council for Continuing Education and Training, which is abbreviated ACCET, and their application for becoming an approved accrediting body in the state of Texas. And after the dialogue with them, we do recommend approval. We do put and request, or I should say recommend, that you put 5 specific restrictions on that. Restrictions is a little bit of a stern word, maybe just qualifications, and that just ensured compliance on our end. We just felt that it was necessary that the coordinating board make it very clear that those points are critical if they're approved for their continued approval. But that was it. We otherwise recommend it to you, and as stated.
Members, you have any questions?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. 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 Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Item 5H, I believe we were going to have a little bit of discussion from Raymond. Did you have some comments on this?
Well, I wanted to say that we are in the process of evaluating the way we rate proposals for doctoral programs. We do this periodically because the national landscape for graduate education changes as there's overproduction in some fields, underproduction in others. There are new fields that are being created on a regular basis, and so we have to take into account all of those different factors. I've said to this board before that I am concerned that we continue to expand programs beyond the availability of resources. And what is likely to occur as a result of that is that if we approve all the programs that are submitted to us, we are going to underfund a large number of those programs, and that's going to lead to widespread mediocrity in graduate education in Texas, which is obviously something we cannot do. So we are working internally. We are going to consult with our the various pertinent advisory groups about reviewing and modifying our standards for graduate program review, particularly doctoral programs. We're probably going to raise the bar on proposals demonstrating that there is, in fact, a need for that particular program. Within a national context, we're going to take a look at admission standards, and we're going to take into account the strength of current graduate programs at a campus that is proposing yet another one. So we will give you more information about that as we develop these new policies.
Questions for the Commissioner?
What impact does that have on this agenda item?
None for now. I just wanted to let you know, as we talked about these programs, that we are reviewing our standards.
But we're being asked today to approve all these these programs that are on the agenda?
Well, I think there's, yes, I think there's one that's been withdrawn.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Well, these are programs that have been vetted by the staff already,
Yes.
and so they're coming to us. So you understand the vetting process that we do here at the commission.
But
So-
just a thought, if you're reviewing all of this, then why wouldn't you pull these off and wait till you've
Well,
come up with your new
first
criteria?
of all,
Is there-
these programs would meet the standards that we are going to apply to programs in the future. But we've had some proposals that have been submitted recently that have been withdrawn. That wouldn't, and we want to make sure that institutions understand very clearly what standards they should meet.
These programs have been vetted through the procedures we have in place, and anything we change, there should be sufficient notice to institutions about how we're going to approach it, and so they can fully comply with those areas. One area that's always been difficult for institutions as well is what constitutes need. And underlying all this is the commissioner's ongoing concern. I think we're all concerned that there should be jobs available for the graduates.
Right.
And so how do you approach that? And we really can't do that on our own. We need to consult with GAC, our Graduate Education Advisory Committee, and others before we make a change. But this is the alert to everyone that we're going to be looking at that.
Transparent.
Commissioner, so, I mean, that's, you say that it ends up with widespread mediocrity. That's pretty strong. So when are you going to come up with these?
We're going to
this new
develop
approach?
them over the next months. We'll have them ready by the fall.
By the fall?
Yes, our goal is to, we usually make a presentation to the statewide meeting of graduate deans, and what we plan to do is introduce our proposed standards to the graduate deans, give them an opportunity to respond to our recommendations, and then get these things in place soon after that.
And let me assure you that the commissioner is always concerned about mediocrity, and I don't think anything's been brought to the board that he thinks will lead to widespread mediocrity. This is part of the planning role of the coordinating board to adjust to context and make sure moving forward that we're doing the right thing. We always need to reevaluate ourselves and our own procedures.
But just coming to the meeting today, you're saying we want to revamp the procedure, and yet you're asking us to improve a whole bunch of programs here. And that's right away as a question.
No, it's a very sensible question. I think, as I said, these programs meet our current standards, but I'm saying that I think we should review our standards. Some will stay in place, others will be modified. But given the fact that there are more and more PhDs being produced in this country every year, there are clearly not enough academic jobs for a lot of the PhDs that we produce, and so it occurred to us it's a good time to look at our standards and modify them if necessary.
Raymond, if the program is denied, is there a process that they can come back, or is that the end of that?
No, they can resubmit, and we seldom just outright say no. We usually tell them you need to take another look at this issue, and we will reconsider. We try to help institutions achieve their academic goals.
Got it. Love it.
Very good. Item 5H1 is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to a request from Sam Houston State University for a Doctor of Philosophy degree with a major in forensic science. Rex.
Do we have folks here from Sam Houston? Okay. As they're coming forward, in case y'all have questions about this particular program, this is a PhD program in forensic science, which is in a lot of ways probably the first in the country to deal directly with it, although there are programs as parts of other departments that deal with the issue of forensics. And of course, Sam Houston is one of those entities that has long had a reputation for criminal justice issues and matters in forensic science is a kind of a natural outgrowth of that. It's basically an 86 semester credit hour program, and kind of in keeping with the norms for doctoral programs across the country. This is one of those things where the issue of need always looms large, and it is difficult. One of the major reasons, at least, that we're looking at this, it's very difficult to determine what need is, particularly for doctoral graduates. And so part of what we're trying to do is get a better handle on need, and that's part of that process that we're going through. But I think this is one of those proposals where it is, because of its unique nature, a need has been established for it, and that these graduates will indeed be able to find jobs and gainful employment, if you will, both in the academic realm, but also in the field itself.
Members, do you have any questions for? We have Candy Tiabi and Sarah Kerrigan. They are both doctors, one from the Forensic Science Department, and the other one is, so Dr. Tiabi is the president for Academic Affairs and Dean of Graduate Studies. Very good.
Well, I would just say thank you for coming today, and importantly to us, your staff has thoroughly reviewed all of this and recommends all of this to us. And yes, Doctor.
I think it's also important, because it isn't shown directly here, is that with programs such as this, we bring in reviewers from similar programs in other parts of the country are recognized for the quality of their programs to come in and review the programs in addition to the staff review. So because we don't have expertise in every program, we know basic characteristics that need to be in place, finances, various things, but we always want to have reviewers who are expert in the program and also know what the opportunities are in the field as well.
They make site visits.
They make site visits.
Right, and I know how thorough you all are, and we've read the materials, and you go to trouble to come to the meeting today, but we also have a long agenda. So
I'll entertain a motion.
I so move. Yeah.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you so much. Item 5H2 is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to a request from Texas A&M University for a Master of Science in Nursing degree with a major in family nurse practitioner. Rex.
This is another program where there is clearly, I think, an established need for graduates of this program. This does focus on family nurse practitioners, and as a lot of what we heard this morning in the discussion about the RAND report is that this is one of those areas where the supply usually never meets the demand. And we also have some members from Texas A&M to discuss this program. If you have any questions, Dr. Sharon Wilkerson is the Dean of the College of Nursing. Dr. Kara Jones Schubart is the director of this program, and Shirley Ellison is the Associate Dean of Finance.
Thank you so much for being here today. Thumbs up. Gentlemen?
That's all I needed. So move.
Oh. Is there any discussion or questions? If so, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you so much.
And I want to say again, thank you for coming today. These programs are really important, and just because we're not talking a lot about them, maybe that's a good thing. We think it's so strong, we just want to go ahead and approve it.
We're grateful you came.
Thank you.
Gig 'em.
Yes, we do appreciate all of you being here.
A great program.
I just think about Durga and look at this program 100% online. He'd be doing backflips, wouldn't he?
Item 5H3 has been withdrawn. Item 5H4 is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to a request from Texas Tech University for a Doctor of Philosophy degree with a major in educational leadership via distance education. Rex.
Thank you, and we have members from Texas Tech also coming forward to address this issue. But this is for a practitioner's degree, a Doctor of Education, in educational leadership. And what distinguishes this is proposed as purely an online program, but it also builds on educational programs that Texas Tech already has. And I should point out that at the Learning Technology Advisory Committee the other day, this program was approved by them as well, and that's a part of your supplemental materials.
And this is a PhD, not a Doctor of Education.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, it builds on their Doctor of Education program. I got that backwards. I'm
Yes.
sorry. This one is actually the PhD program, which is a research proposal. So my apologies.
Gentlemen, any questions, discussion?
Madam Chair, I'm going to make no comment to where I went to college, but I will make a motion that we approve.
I didn't go to
And I second. And I do have a question. So with a philosophy degree, you normally think of somebody writing a thesis, and so tell me about how that happens online.
They will do that. We've been doing it for about 10 years with our EDD program, largely headquartered in the Hill Country. Pardon me, with campus or with sites in Fredericksburg, Marble Falls, and Junction. So about half of our EDD students that have come through the program in the last 10 years have in fact been away from campus and have made 1 or 2 visits to campus, typically for their proposal and final defenses, but their coursework has been delivered to them online with coordinating board approval. So we're really building on what we've been doing for the last 10 years and extending it to the PhD.
And Mr. Steen, this is the recommendation to approve this program is consistent with the staff position at the coordinating board that opportunities for professional advancement in education, particularly for local school district administrators, should be available to people in every part of the state. That only strengthens local school districts and presumably improves educational achievement for all children.
Yes.
There's one line here, though, that although it's difficult to figure out how many jobs there's going to be for your graduates, they may face a very competitive market. Is this just purely for their own educational gain, or will these students still be able to get jobs afterwards?
I read that same line, and I can really speak to my institution, Texas Tech.
You have to hit that button, make it red.
It is red.
Okay.
Oh, that's the one. Yeah, we need to get that mic fixed. Okay.
I don't know if that separates out the PhDs and the EDD graduates of education leadership programs. So if it doesn't, then that would be, pardon me, the entire marketplace of folks. In our case, in our EDD, we're targeting K-12 school administrators with the EDD and the dissertations they write to help solve problems of practice on their school campuses or in their school districts. With the PhD, we're focusing more on policy and particularly on preparing prospective faculty. In my program, I'm all but one of our faculty over the age of 60. We all want to keep working, but we're not going to work forever. So preparing the next generation of faculty, where they come into the profession with 5 or more years of school administrative experience, then earn a PhD with the research background that we think will prepare them to be faculty or policy analysis or participate in other related ways with a healthier, stronger research background. That's why our interest in the PhD is, that's why we're coming to you today.
I'd just like to point out, I may be incorrect, but when the Texas Workforce Commission does its analysis of advertisements, I don't believe they look at the Chronicle of Higher Education, which is a primary place where you would find ads for people wanting to take faculty jobs in this field.
And just in the last couple of years, we've had, I know of 2 graduates who've gone on to faculty roles, one at the University of Alabama, Birmingham, another one at Angelo State, one of our Texas Tech system partner institutions. We've had a great many more stay in the K-12 environment. And I just made a short list of where we have superintendents serving right now, to say nothing of campus principals or deputy or assistant superintendents. And these are not all people that have come through the program in just the last 2 or 3 years, but NSISD, Lubbock, Midland, Guthrie, Seagraves, Muleshoe, Brownfield, Thorndale, Andrews. Those are people that I know all of them. I've taught classes to all of them. They are all currently EDD graduates staying in their school districts, not looking to become professors, at least not that I'm aware of, and leading their schools, both large and small, especially those that are in, like Guthrie. They get 4, 5, 6 high school graduates a year, but Nelson Coulter, their superintendent, I think, is well prepared with his EDD to be serving that school district. The PhDs that we're aiming to in a selective way that we're looking to target with the new program, again, taking into account with the distance delivery in a rural population in West Texas, we think we can serve them as well, but differently than we have been doing with the EDD.
Other questions? Motion?
Well, I think that's a good point that Mr. Cordy brought up, because, we talk about whether there'll be jobs available. And, Doctor, you were surprised to see that sentence in there? Is that
Well, I hadn't seen it before this morning when we got here, and I read it in the agenda, and I thought, well, I didn't know how else to deal with it, but I appreciate your comment there.
I think it's important to point out that this comment is a result of the staff analysis of trying to determine need, but it also points out how difficult it can be to try to determine that, because the statement reads that it is difficult to estimate the number of job openings in educational administration because that category is not tracked by either the Bureau of Labor Statistics or the Texas Workforce Commission. And so then we wind up trying to rely on things like advertisements and that kind of stuff. And if it's not in something like the Chronicle of Higher Education, where you would expect to see a lot of these kinds of advertisements. And so, this is one of those things that we're trying to sort our way through, and probably in the future we'll try to make much more use of professional organizations and that kind of thing to look at this very issue.
There are also job markets, as there are in other higher education faculty positions. For example, the American Educational Research Association, there's a session, and much of the hiring, or at least the initial interviews, are conducted at that session. Myself, I probably had 20 of those when I was 25 years old or something like that. So there are a lot of other places that the faculty is harder to get a hold of, and this is one reason the commissioner is wanting to look at it, because it is a hard thing to grasp a hold of, but you're not likely to find it in the Houston Chronicle or the Austin American Statesman ads.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Addendum 5H5 is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to a request from Texas State University for a Master of Science degree with a major in engineering. Rex.
Thank you. Thank you. This is a Master of Science in Engineering degree for Texas State that would actually provide a kind of umbrella degree over their existing bachelor's degree programs in engineering. And we have with us today Dr. Jean Bourgeois, Provost and VP for Academic Affairs, and Dr. Steve Seidman, who's the Dean of the College of Science and Engineering, and Dr. Stan McLennan, who's the Director of the Ingram School of Engineering, who would be happy to answer any questions about this particular program. This is also one of those that we tried to look at very closely about a particularly regional need with bachelor's degrees and master's degrees programs. And the case that was made to us is that this program, being a sort of an umbrella over the major engineering programs, does provide some employment opportunities. So,
gentlemen, any questions? I find it interesting. You had a PhD program, but you didn't have the master's in engineering. Seems like a needed course. Yeah, okay.
And I think I have the mic that's not working.
Well, that's fine. All right. Any other thoughts, discussion?
So moved.
Have a motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No one opposed. Motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
5H6 is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to a request for the University of Houston for a Doctor of Philosophy degree with a major in hospitality administration. Rex.
Thank you. Again, this is one of those programs that would be rather unique. Only Texas Tech University currently has a doctoral program in hospitality management or administration at this time. And University of Houston is also, like Sam Houston with criminal justice, University of Houston is one of those places that has long had a reputation for bachelor's and master's degree programs in hospitality administration, and enjoys great support from the private sector in that. And we have with us today Dr. John Bowen, who's the Dean of the Conrad Hilton College of Hotel and Restaurant Management, to address any questions that you might have about this program.
I'm sure it's on here. How many students do you have enrolled in hospitality for the bachelor level?
We have...
press the button. Is it?
Thank you, yeah. We have approximately a little over 1,100 students in the college, about 1,000 on the bachelor's level, and then 100 in our Master of Science program.
Dean, you all are doing something in San Antonio. Am I remembering that right?
Yes, we are. As a matter of fact, I was in San Antonio yesterday and he came up here today for this meeting. But we're going to open courses in San Antonio in conjunction with St. Philip. So we'll do upper division hospitality. The Alamo Community College system will do the general education, and then the lower division hospitality. And so we're looking forward to that. And again, have received great support from the industry in San Antonio.
And I'm thinking, is it Cornell where they have a great program in this area too?
Cornell also has a good program, right? Exactly.
Do they have a PH program at Cornell?
They do. Yes, we're really the only major program that's highly ranked without a PhD program. It's been a void in our program for a while.
And I know you all are right there at the top, but who else besides Cornell does this?
Purdue does it. UNLV is big. The Rosen College recently broke out of the School of Business probably about 8-9 years ago, and they've come on very strong. So those would be some of the major.
And you're saying all those other programs have the PhD?
Yes, they do, yeah.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you so much. Item 5H7 is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to a request from the University of Houston for a Doctor of Philosophy degree with a major in higher education leadership and policy studies. Rex.
I'm sorry, I've turned to the wrong item. Okay, I'm back. I guess I was so eager I jumped ahead to the next one, anticipating rapid approval of this one as well. This is for a Doctor of Philosophy degree, a PhD with a major in higher education leadership and policy studies, and we have with us today Dr. Bruce Jones, Dr. Bob McPherson, Dr. Laveria Hutchinson, and Catherine Horn. Did I read that correctly? Mm-hmm. Wow. And they'll be glad to answer any questions about this. I think this is another one of those programs that's in keeping with the idea of trying to make sure that ultimately, particularly public school teachers are adequately trained and have access to folks that are adequately trained, but it also crosses over into higher education as well, particularly with the use of technology in classrooms. A lot of faculty, both at the secondary and post-secondary level, would love to use technology, but they don't know how. And these kind of folks help lead that particular area. So if y'all have some remarks about it, or if y'all have questions about this particular program, I'm sure they'd be glad to answer them.
Questions, gentlemen? Have a motion? Have a motion and a second?
Second. Yeah, I was just reading that you said is it 7 universities in Texas offer similar PhD programs? Am I reading that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Any other questions?
And that 2 of the institutions report that they're at capacity, so it's good.
Yes, sir. Yes, in this particular case, I think this is another area where we have been able to more clearly establish the need for the program. Because at this point, 2 of them are, the existing programs are at capacity. So this appears to fill a gap that we need.
And at University of Houston, there was really a reorganization of College of Ed in recent years. And so this program was actually in place, one could say, in a different form at one time. And through the reorganization, they've reshaped things and really streamlined and strengthened the programs even more.
Absolutely. I coordinate the higher education program, which is why I'm mysteriously sitting at the table. That's absolutely right. And one of the things that has come out of that reorganization is a stronger connection to our educational psychology colleagues and the work that we do around adult education. It's also strengthened our connections with our elementary and secondary leadership colleagues, really building on the state's emphasis on the K-16 or the PK-20 pipeline and the importance of trying to blur those boundaries as much as we can in our preparation of scholars and scholar practitioners who will be entering into related fields well prepared to address the leadership and policy needs that our increasingly complex systems require.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you so much for being here. Item 5H8, consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to a request from the University of Houston for a Doctor of Philosophy degree with a major in curriculum and instruction. Thank you for being here.
So, as you can see, University of Houston's been really busy.
Very busy,
lately.
I know.
And this one is another doctoral degree in curriculum and instruction, but I think it's also in keeping with that same theme of trying to support both public and higher education in Texas and make sure that we have folks out there who are adequately trained in all areas. The previous degree was about policy and leadership, and this is more focused on the particular issue of curriculum and instructional design. And but again, it's a part of that effort of trying to make sure that we turn out well qualified folks. So.
Questions? Motion?
Don't move.
Second.
We have a motion and second. No discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Thank you so much. Item 5H9 is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to a request from the University of Houston, Clear Lake, for a Doctor of Education degree with a major in curriculum and instruction.
Okay, so it's not just the main campus that's been busy, but also the other campuses as well. In this case, Clear Lake, and this is a proposed EDD in curriculum and instruction. And this is a kind of an interesting proposal because it has a very definite STEM focus attached to it, whereas the previous program was more general in nature. This one has a very strong focus on looking at and concentrating on curriculum instruction, particularly dealing with the STEM areas, which is one of the more especially in public education, is one of the more problematic areas of teaching students and more importantly, getting them engaged and interested in it so that they pursue it later on.
Any discussion or questions? Right. Excellent.
A second. I'm reading in the materials that this program would be the second doctoral program offered by your institution. So what's the first?
Educational leadership.
All right.
Okay. All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much for
Once
being
again, thanks for traveling all this way.
Yes.
This is good. We're approving it.
At least Carl got to talk a little bit earlier.
I was hoping you wouldn't hold me to that. Thank you for your time.
So item 5I, is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to issuance of a request for applications and the awarding of grants for the Graduate Medical Education Planning Grants Program. Rex.
Thank you. And as pointed out, this is to issue an RFA and then to allow us to award funds for planning grants for graduate medical education, and in a moment I'll let Dr. Silverman and Suzanne Pickens answer questions about this. But I think it's important to note that these kinds of things also follow up on the discussion this morning that I believe Dr. Tesher mentioned, the fact that we have created 2 new medical schools, but we also need to make sure that we provide graduate education for those folks to stay in Texas and wind up actually practicing medicine here so that we can address the needs of the state. And these planning grants are part of a lot of other pieces of the puzzle that go into trying to fulfill that need. So I will let those two answer questions about this one.
Thank you, Dr. Peoples. I'll start with agenda item 5I. This is related to issuing a request for application to fund 3 additional planning grants for the establishment to begin to consider whether or not a hospital that doesn't currently offer residency training could go ahead and offer residency training. This first item would allow for 3 additional planning grants to be made. Legislation was passed last session that allowed the issuance of up to, I believe, 12 planning grants, and we've awarded 9. So we have 3 remaining, and we do know that there's interest out there in the field. I'll be happy to answer questions about them.
Do you already have those locations?
We do. They're actually published out on our website as well.
Where are they?
The 3 additional ones we don't have locations for. We're going to issue the RFA to seek those additional sites. For the 9, we do have them awarded, and they are up and running.
Do we have a motion and a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Item 5J is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to issuance of a request for applications and the awarding of grants to the Graduate Medical Education Unfulfilled Positions Program and the new and expanded program grants.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Silverman.
Yes, as you all may recall, we did issue an RFA last year to fill the unfilled residency positions. This would build upon that. We funded 25 positions. Those are going to be funded for 2 years. We have an additional $4.1 million. Issuing an RFA will allow us to fund those additional residency programs. Any new programs that maybe have come online, we're hoping some might have come online with the planning grant. That would be great. Or any expansions of existing residency programs. So that's what this will provide funding for.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is
Madam
passed.
Chair, I've got a question.
Sure.
So, Dr. Gardner, these I, J, K, L, M relate to issuing requests for applications and seem pretty non-controversial, straightforward. Why weren't those on the consent agenda? Do you know?
Well, these were particular areas the board has for which the board has had interest in the past, and so we thought the board would at least want to be aware of them. They could well have been on the consent agenda, but they're related to our issues related to health care, the supply of people in various fields, and so these are things that will change with the membership of the committees and what they're most interested in. So.
Yes, there had been a lot of discussion in the past about these issues.
Okay.
So.
Well, if it would move things along, which one are we on?
K.
Okay, I mean, I would move approval of K, L, and M at the same time, unless somebody wants to.
I assume we can do that. Do we have a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Thanks.
Motion passes for K, L, and M. Let's see, now that makes us N. 5N is consideration.
Hold on. Was there any particular information in any of those that was germane to what we should know?
Actually, just some informational items. We did go through negotiated rulemaking for the two brand new programs, the Resident Physician Expansion Program and for the Primary Care Innovation Program. The draft set of rules are in your packet. They have been up and published, and they will be up for your consideration at the board meeting. So those are two brand new programs. So.
Other questions?
Thank you.
Okay. 5N is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to the issuance of a cost extension for a grant awarded to the University of North Texas under the Minority Health Research and Education Grant Program. Rex.
Thank you. Let's see, four grants were originally given out under this particular program, and the University of North Texas has asked for a cost extension for it, and it's been very successful. And we have with us today Rebecca Thomas, who is in the Allied Health Pathways Project Director, under which this program falls, I assume. So she'd be glad to answer any questions about it. And what you might want to do is just talk a little bit about the background information to this.
Okay. First, I just want to express Dr. Keller, who actually is the program director, was unable to be here, and her deepest regrets for not being able to come and answer the questions. I'm actually the program coordinator for the Allied Health Pathways program, and we are a program that recruits and supports minority males, particularly Hispanic and African American males, who are interested in pursuing advanced degrees in an allied health field, and more particularly physical therapy.
How many are enrolled?
Currently, we have 72 men enrolled in the program that participate. We partner with 4 different community colleges as well as UNT, and we do have a couple of participants from UTA as well.
So they do their undergrad at the community college and then do the physical therapy at UNT. It's for the 5-year program, for the doctoral program?
Well, actually, the physical therapy, the doctorate of physical therapy, can be done at any PT program across the state. Our UNT Health Science Center is one of our direct partners, but typically, I would say 95% of the men in the program are kinesiology majors.
But the goal, have you had any graduate?
Yes. We've had 2 that graduated from the Health Science Center. They were already at the Health Science Center when this grant was awarded to UNT. And then we've had 8 that have graduated with baccalaureate degrees this year, and we have 7 that finished their academic work at the community colleges and are transferring to either UNT or UTA.
So what can they do in physical therapy with a bachelor's degree?
They could go on into a certification program for a PTA, a physical therapist assistant, but they must have a doctorate degree in physical therapy to become a physical therapist.
But what's the goal? Is to get them through the doctoral program?
Yes.
Or through? But I don't believe you have to have a bachelor's to be a PT assistant, do you?
No, you do not.
That's just really an associate degree.
Correct.
Okay, so you're asking for an extension for how much money?
For $109,000.
And we have the money?
Yes, we do.
Wonder where it's coming from? It was still in the fund? Is that what we're saying? Okay. Okay, that explanation may be in here, but I'm sorry. Okay. All right.
So moved.
Move in second. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Hey, Madam
you.
Chair, I just want to emphasize again to people watching this that Mr. Huckabee and I are the only 2 that can correct that can move and second. So I don't want us to
A great job.
But I don't want people to think like
dominating.
Yeah, like why are these guys? But we're the only two that can do it. So all right.
All right. Agenda items 5O 1 through 8 are on the consent calendar. 5P 1 through 6 and 5Q are on the consent calendar. 5R is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to the January 2014 annual compliance reports for institutions under a certificate of authorization. These will be names beginning with A through O. Rex.
Part of the responsibility of my division is to oversee what, as I referred to before, is Chapter 7 schools, which are mainly proprietary institutions, in the state of Texas, and they are required to file with us annual reports, which is mainly how we try to monitor compliance, both for their financial stability, but also the quality of their programs to some extent. And there are approximately 300 of these institutions, and so we divide them into roughly half in the first half of the year and the other half in the second half of the year. And what you have in front of you is the report for A through O, and and really what we try to do is go through the alphabet till we hit about half, and then the rest of the alphabet you'll get in the January or the December Caws meeting, actually for the January board meeting.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved. Thank you. Item 5S is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to the issuance of a request for applications for a coordinator to develop and implement a statewide professional development program to support the dissemination of promising practices in serving students assessed at developmental education and basic academic skills education levels. So you saved this kind of to the last, Judy, but...
Is it the best to last?
Yeah. All right.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, this is, if you recall, we have been working for the last year and a half, 2 years, very heavily around the TSI and the development of the operational plan. As the Commissioner alluded previously, we have, over the last 4 years in total work, been redesigning and revamping developmental education that includes not only assessment, advising, curriculum, et cetera. And so now we are at the point of creating that professional development statewide to scale and to expand the training of faculty that are in the community college systems around our work. And so what we are asking is permission to post an RFA to get a hub or a coordinator that would be the legwork for us in disseminating and coordinating this training. We also have grants out that will be going to 10 institutions that will be those that are leader colleges in that work that we have done. So this is what this is for, and there is money in developmental education to fund this.
So is the salary $500,000?
Yes.
I will apply.
Okay.
I'm in, yeah.
We'll send you the application.
So this would include the salary along with...
No, it's money for them to actually pay for the venue, the coordination of the work, the consultants that will do the training. It is not paying a salary for a person.
Just want to make
would be
the
a nice salary, though.
there.
So this is simply the RFA approval.
That's right. This is simply the RFA.
approval. I move approval.
I'll be glad to resign my seat to... All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes. Thank you. Item 5S is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to the issuance of a request for applications. Oh, I just did that one.
You just did it.
Sorry. 5T is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to the use of a federal fiscal year 2014 teacher quality grant funds to extend current grants and provide funding to support continuation of the activities.
You previously had approved the use of the funds that we have received under teacher quality, which is the retraining and retooling of teachers in science and mathematics. And you will note in your packet that you have a list of those that have been funded. What we would like to do, since we now know that we are receiving funds again, because within that grant application, they have a chance to reapply again for continued funding funding based on the success of their program this year, the evaluation of their programs, and that is what we are asking permission to do at this time, to proceed with that, and then we will come back with you to let you know who has met all of the criteria.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Item 5U is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to the approval to increase the federally funded Texas Workforce Commission grant award to One Accelerate Texas College. Judy.
We received a grant, or in cooperation with a grant with the Texas Workforce Commission, for $1 million for providing training for critical shortage area employment. And Hill College, each institution had been awarded grant funds for up to 25 candidates. Hill College indicated that they could not serve the 25 and are only serving 10. But Tarrant County College wanted the additional slots, and so what we are doing is moving the money from Hill College to Tarrant County College. But we wanted to bring that back to you because it does alter how that money has been awarded out from our agency. These funds are the Department of Labor grant funds that really came to Texas Workforce that then came to us.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. 5V is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to the allocation of work-study mentorship program funding to participating Transition Texas project sites. Judy.
We have received, of course, our Texas work-study money, and when you gave us the authority to expend those funds, we had put funds aside for what you noticed on the list as called Transition Texas. This is mentoring and tutoring activities that are provided by students to other students within the college. And at the same time, we had the chance to apply for a USA grant, hoping that our work around Transition Texas would be funded. We did make the finalist rank, but unfortunately didn't make it to the selection. And so we had retained that money back in our work-study program. What we would now like to do is ask permission from you to expend the $600,000 that we had held back for Transition Texas activities, which is around tutoring and mentoring.
Questions?
So move.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. 5W is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to the approval to enter into contracts with the 3 public institutions of higher education to continue the Advise Texas College Advising Program designed to increase the number of low-income first-generation college and underrepresented students who enter and complete higher education.
You are aware that as part of the College Access Challenge Grant, when we first got funding, we developed and went into a collaborative effort with the College Advising Corps and developed Advise Texas. We have had a wonderful 4 years of work around that, and it has proven to be a very good program, allowing near-peer graduates coming right out of college to be placed in schools that have a low college-going rate, to help not only inform students about college, but to advise them on the process, the application process, how do you select a college, etc. We, unfortunately, because of maintenance of effort, did not qualify to reapply for college access funds this year, this go-round. And so what we are doing now is we've identified funding within our agency, if you'll notice on the back page of general revenue, that comes really from 4 different categories. And if you'll notice, it's listed the source of funding in order to cover the 3 institutions that we will be working with or hope to be working with this next year, which is Texas A&M, Texas State University, and the University of Texas at Austin. What we have also done is sought permission from the LBB, Legislative Budget Board, to be able to utilize the funding under Strategy A as noted from the different funding sources. We, as of today, have not received approval yet. Dr. Alonso has been in dialogue, as well as the business office, on the use of these funds to be awarded to these institutions. The total amount of funding that we are needing for the fiscal year 14-15 is $1.2 million, but we also have money that we have from private entities, because the College for All Texans Foundation has also been helping us identify funding from private resources and foundations. In addition, you will note on your blue page the Texas Workforce Commission has also given to this program $250,000. So the total amount that we are asking the LBB permission to use is $550,000. Based on their approval, then we are asking you to allow us to expend these funds, which will total up to that $1.2 million, which is the rest is private funding. And if not, if we don't receive approval from the LBB, then we would definitely have to go back and look at the size of the program on these 3 campuses or institutions.
So when do you expect to hear back from the LBB?
I wish I could give you an answer. We have been in dialogue with them, I guess, for what, 2 weeks, Dr. Alonso?
It's been longer than that.
I'd be
It's
2 or
been
3
at
weeks.
least
I know Linda
4 or
Battles.
6 weeks.
Linda Battles has even been in dialogue with them herself.
So the motion really needs to be very specific and contingent on what the LBB.
Doctor, I think you happen to sit at the seat where that mic's not working.
Broken. There you go. You have to hold it. Some of them.
Excuse me. Yeah, we started dialoguing and communicating with the LBB, I think, back in May. So it's been some time. The motion should really be, or the action taken by the board should be contingent on LBB approval.
I just want to
now, keep in mind, some of these funds we already have that are not general revenue funds. They are private entity funds and authorized by the donators to be used for the program. And so the $550,000 is what we are asking permission of LBB.
So move on the recommendation.
Well, I just want to make sure the wording is correct, because I'm not seeing what you're saying. I'm not seeing it worded as a motion. So.
Well, on the agenda item, it says recommendation approval, then dash contingent on legislative budget board approval.
Yeah.
All right. So that's clear to everyone. Okay.
So what that's telling us is if that's not approved, we'll come back with another recommendation which goes through and outlines.
That is correct.
Okay.
And as long as the LBB approves this, we don't have to get the comptroller's approval or any of that.
We have received comptroller's approval.
Okay.
Okay. Very good.
We have a motion and a second.
And I just have a question. Ma'am, why these 3 institutions as opposed to others?
Well, we had 5 programs. There was 5 that were awarded funds, 2 privates and 3 publics. We will only be awarding funding to the 3 publics. The 2 private institutions will be working with the national office, College Access Office, in terms of their funding.
But again, why these 3?
Well, there's a criteria for the selection of schools that participate in the advising corps, and that is graduation rates, et cetera. And so UT and A&M in our state, of course, have the highest. They've been part of the program for the last 4 years, and we added Texas State last year. They asked to become part of the program.
Bill.
So that's why it's also only 3 public institutions, because we'll be using the general revenue funds for that.
You know, just a quick comment, but being from San Antonio and observing what they're doing at Texas A&M San Antonio in terms of focusing on low-income first-generation students, I think, is there a reason why you couldn't consider something like Texas A&M San Antonio?
Well, at this point, these are the programs that are approved in terms of the College Advising Corps, which is a national office. You know, it would be nice if we had a college advisor on every campus in the state where we have the low. Unfortunately, because Texas is so large and the number of high school campuses, right now at 120, it's kind of small. It'd be ideal to have more institutions that could participate in this.
Thank you.
Yes.
Real quickly, it seems, is this mic working?
Yes. Yes.
It seems that the board has two options. One, to come back in the event the LBB says no to the proposed $500,000 budget transfer. The other option is to go forward with a smaller program at these institutions that would be in the amount of $751,000. The 501 that CFAT has been able to raise, coupled with the $250,000 from the Texas Workforce Commission. Obviously, that would be a smaller program than the $1,251,000. And I don't know which way the board wants to go with that. And so I think your motion really is dependent on whether or not, if the LBB responds negatively to our proposed budget transfer, do you want us to come back, or would you prefer we reconnoiter at that point and go forward with the program with $751,000?
So my thought was that if we pass something today and then we have our board meeting in July, but we hear from the LBB in between, is there a way we can finalize it at the board meeting?
There is.
Then we go with the motion we have now and then take it to the board meeting, dependent on what we hear back from the LBB before then, possibly?
It would be the recommendation of the committee to the board, right, obviously subject to whatever the LBB says. Yes.
So if the numbers change, that would give us an opportunity to see that.
We could change it. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved. Thank you.
Do we have some consternation there? Do you have something else to add?
I apologize. I'm Jarrell Booker, Senior Director dealing
Dr.
with...
Booker oversees the Advise Texas program in our division.
So what Bill's is correct. And I think the fear is if we wait till July, these institutions are waiting to hire. So we can move forward with less money. The program could still move forward, but it would buy us time to actually try to either identify more funds, or for CAC, the nonprofit partner that Dr. Laredo discussed, could possibly add in more funds. But to wait, it would push them into August and September when they need to actually start training these advisors in August. So even starting with a smaller amount would be more beneficial, and then come back and possibly come to you all if we actually do have to add more money at another time.
So we know well, but we have $751,000 now.
Yes.
What you're indicating is approve this expenditure of the $751 and subject.
I have a question about that, though.
Okay.
So if we approve that, are we going to, and we've just not approved that, if we were to approve it in that direction, would we just simply agree we're going to reduce these numbers proportionately?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's my only concern. Right. As long as we're going to say we're going to reduce them all exact proportionate, I don't have an issue with that if these are all going to change.
That's exact. It would be exact proportion.
That's really what you're asking for?
That's correct.
And the funds that the agency clearly has the authority to expend is all that we would be expending. What is general revenue that we have not received the authority for, we would not be spending.
That's correct.
Madam Chair, what's going through my mind is this is just a committee of the board.
The board has to approve it anyway.
That's correct. It has to be approved.
You wouldn't disperse money before the board meeting.
I don't think they do.
Not under...
Because it's under a certain amount. It was under my impression that we did not.
The board, if it's under $750,000, you have the authority to approve. Isn't that correct, Mr. Frantz? The board.
The committee.
Anything above that would have to go to the committee. To the board.
You really would like for us to withdraw that last vote, or I guess we have to have another.
It wouldn't matter.
So we just go. Okay.
If they don't get the approval, then it's under 750. They don't need board approval anyway.
But they would need committee approval.
Oh.
You need committee approval.
You got me on that one.
Duh.
Okay.
So he's asking us to approve the lower amount now, and if we get the money from the LBB, the board can then we can give them more money in July. But he's asking us,
Bill,
I believe, to...
How do we undo what we just did?
To approve the lower amount so the colleges can go ahead and hire.
That's easy. We just you just withdraw your motion, or did you make a motion?
But we've already voted on it.
Well, we just retracted
it.
Yeah, but I'm a little bit confused. So there are things that can be actions that can be taken by the committee that are binding on the full board.
Yes.
Really?
That's the rules of the board.
Okay.
Under Rule 1.16 of the board's rules, the committee is responsible for actions on any amounts for contracts or grants that are over $100,000 all the way up to and including $750,000. Once it goes above $750,000, then it must go to the board, the full board, for approval.
And would you send me that? I need to be educated on that. Thank you.
Rule 1.16?
Yes, sir.
I will be happy to.
Thank you.
So I will entertain a motion to reconsider. Is that what I need?
So I think the motion would be, do we need to rescind our last motion?
Was there an actual vote taken?
Yes.
Okay, then yes.
And what is, think about your Robert's Rules of Order, what's the correct motion? Is it a motion to?
Could well be a motion to reconsider, and that needs to be made by somebody who voted on affirmatively. Obviously, everybody did. So.
I move that we reconsider.
Did you make the motion?
Yes.
Okay.
I move that we reconsider the motion.
Nice second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, so I make a new motion, and I'm going to try to get this right, that upon approval of LBB, we will approve the entire amount or the lesser amount if LBB is not approved.
That's pretty much what the original motion was.
Well, what?
No, it said contingent. It said it was contingent on LBB.
So,
Counsel, why don't you state the motion?
Yeah.
And then we'll just.
I actually thought Mr. Huckabee's motion was pretty good.
So I would.
He's an architect, not a lawyer.
Thank you. That's exactly right.
We approve the. Is it $750,000?
That is correct.
It's contingent on LBB approval or the lesser amount if LBB does not approve.
Why don't you?
Well, but what you're saying.
And the lesser amount would be $250,000. Or if the LBB were to approve a portion of our proposed budget transfers, which is feasible, but not the remainder.
But that motion still says you have to wait on the LBB. I need the motion to say, right now, I approve $750,000 for you to move forward so that your colleges can hire people. If the LBB approves the money, we'll add that in there.
This is why you have lawyers, but let's put our counsel on the spot and articulate the motion for us.
Because he needs to move forward. He can't wait for the LBB.
Well, he would, okay. He would be moving forward, though, at the lower amount under the motion that we just described.
That's right.
Well, I'm just saying the way it was worded, it sounded like we were going to wait to see what the LBB decided. I don't want to make him wait.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second, I assume. Everybody's written it down correctly, right?
Let's clarify.
Okay, but just to make sure we're clarified that we are going to go ahead and expend the monies that we have available that we can expend.
Which would be the Texas Workforce Commission grant in the amount of $250,000 and the CFAT raised funds in the amount of $501,000 for a total of $751,000, and then we'll come back and make a second motion.
Counsel, that was only part of it.
That's a good idea.
Can you read to the record the motion, the full motion?
The board
it was partly what you said, and
No, we're going to do two motions.
I was, but I'll be happy to. The motion would be to approve the expenditure of the grant from the Texas Workforce Commission in the amount of $250,000, as well as the CFAT funding in the amount of $501,000 for the Advise Texas College Advising Program for the time frame of August 14, 2014 through August 31, 2015.
Well done.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say.
And I second, yeah.
I need approval for CFAP. Otherwise, it goes over the board.
Y'all have that.
So you can call time out at these meetings? I didn't know.
No.
It's the end of the day.
You don't need approval.
This is like
for
a
the
sidebar, John.
That's what the issue is. I'm sorry. My items were quick.
She did not say that.
I'm going to admit it. I'm going to admit it's true. Because I thought if you get no already, you can go by two.
Can I help you with the motion?
Your vertebra are going to go.
Do you want me to help you with the motion, Bill?
I've been advised that CFAT has already committed its $501,000 regardless of additional funding for the Advised Texas program for the time frame I indicated. And so as a result, that $501,000 really is not needed as part of this motion, so that this motion could delete that and have only the $250,000 Texas Workforce Commission grant as part of this motion.
You're approving expenditures of $250,000.
So do we have
And I'd like to put our council, so state the motion that we're voting on.
The motion is to approve the expenditure of $250,000 as a result of the Texas Workforce Commission grant for the Advised Texas College Advising Program for the time frame of August 14, 2014 through August 31, 2015.
We have
Move approval.
Second.
motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
The second motion, if you want to take care of this today rather than waiting, would be to approve the expenditure of up to $500,000 in budget transfers that are currently pending review by the Legislative Budget Board for the Advised Texas College Advising Program for the time frame of August 14, 2014 through August 31, 2015. And as an aside, not part of the motion, that would allow the expenditure of any amount of those funds, if any, approved by the LBB.
So while you were saying that, everybody's nodding back there, so I know you're on the right track.
It's a team effort.
Good work. Okay,
Right.
I make the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. So,
If they were a jury, you know you were in good shape.
so do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Thank you very much.
Second, all in favor, say aye. Thank you.